Welcome to the Math Mastery Series, Navigating Success at Oakland Community College. My name is Julie Gunkelman, and this is the 7th video in my series. I have been talking about these two books, Teach Students How to Learn and Teach Yourself How to Learn by Sandra Yancey McGuire with Stephanie McGuire. I added in every video this slide that says, just to remind you that this is not going to work forever, right? That if you look at the I do, we do as a class, you do the math, it's eventually going to fail, right? So that's just a little recap of what we've been talking about. In this last video, I want to wrap up this metacognitive learning cycle, and I'm going to talk about the monitoring and evaluation. And the monitoring is going to be your self-evaluation, right? Like basically, and evaluating whether these things are working. So they kind of go together, but basically you want to keep track of, hey, all of these metacognitive strategies that we've been doing, right? The previewing, the preparing for active reading, paraphrasing, reading actively, using the textbook, taking notes by hand, doing homework without solved examples, teaching the material, working in pairs or groups, creating practice exams. How is it working for you, right? Is it working? Are these things working for you, or do we have to tweak them a little bit? Here's some more questions for you, right? How effective was your reading practice or online homework session, right? So after you do these things, and it might be not just after every time, but maybe after a series of them, how was it? Like, is it working? How did it go? This is what you want to think about, right? To evaluate, to see, do I need to spend more time, less time, maybe a different environment, whatever. You want to try to tweak this to be successful. Also, how effective was your week? Should you plan next week differently? So in the last video, I talked about the ideal week. Now we can tweak that plan, right? Especially if it's digital, right? You can tweak that so you can arrange things differently. Like if you know for sure something didn't work for you on a certain day, then plan something differently the next week, right? That's the beauty of this whole process, is that you get to go back and tweak it. You're not locked into one thing. What I also want you to think about, right? So that's kind of monitoring your progress, but kind of evaluate. Is there anything that you are or not doing to make it hard to reach your goal? And one thing comes to mind when I read this question, right? You want to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success, right? So turn off your notifications, put your do not disturb on. I mean, some people go as even far as buying themselves a lockbox, right? That doesn't unlock until a certain time that they have worked on their homework or reading or whatever it is, right? Like you could go to that extreme, but hopefully you don't have to, but maybe you do. Another thing I want you to think about is, how is your mindset regarding mathematics? So start to think about how you feel about it, right? So if you wake up every morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go to that math class, right? Like think about it. You're not setting yourself up for a good day. But if you wake up and you go, oh, I get to go to this class and I get to learn, all these things because you did the previewing, right? And you know what you're going to learn. That's a good thing, right? That's going to motivate you to be there versus, oh my gosh, I have to do this thing, right? And a lot of people have a negative attitude about math. And if you flip that around, start thinking about it, right? Like how much that impacts you, it can be significant. I also want you to start thinking about, can you determine in general what will be on the test, right? Can you figure out what those things are going to be? If you do the things that McGuire is asking you to do in this book to try to be successful, you're already writing some of those questions down. Like, are we going to have, a certain kind of problem, or might we apply it in a different way? Thinking about all those things from Bloom's taxonomy that we've talked about, you want to start to think about that quite a bit. And doing those practice tests, you writing those tests and taking them yourself, is really good practice for this. You also want to evaluate your understanding and your learning of the topic before you take a test. So I've talked about this before. You want to try to test yourself, right? You're doing a self-evaluation before the exam, right? So I suggested that you do the practice problems in the textbook first, and then you go to do the online homework, and hopefully that will be your test to see what you know. But remember that idea of just testing yourself. just testing yourself without the notes and whatever, that sets you up for, if you don't know it, your brain is going to be more apt to try to take that in to learn it because it wants to learn it, right? So definitely you want to be testing yourself and evaluating yourself all the time, right? Like, can I do this kind of problem, etc. One thing I don't think I talked about is the brain tends to do things in order, right? So if you always do the problems in the same order, your brain is going to say, hey, I know how to do that. And it really just recognizes it. So it's kind of a false sense of security. I might have talked about it when I talked about the interleaving, working on mixing up those topics for your study sessions so that you can learn better. But it's the same thing. You want to evaluate yourself. And when you're doing that, make sure that you're testing yourself out of order so that you're not always in the same order, because I promise your brain will trick you into thinking that you know something when you actually don't. So again, make sure you're testing yourself, evaluating, do it without all those notes, out all the help aside. Make sure that you build that into your plan on a regular basis. So just keep thinking about your thinking. Think about how things are successful for you. If they're serving you well, if they're not serving you well, let them go, right? And this was my big example, right? If it's not serving you, I don't say let your whole phone go, but make sure that you put it away so that you are not distracted by it. If you're watching this video and it hasn't been the first week of the semester yet, I do have some orientation sessions coming up, the Meet Mrs. Gunkelman sessions. This is for any Winter 24 OCC students in Math 1150, 1540, 1560, 1580, or 1730. I'm meeting students on January 11th at 7 p.m. or on Friday, January 12th at 1 p.m. I do ask that you register with your OCC email address. You're going to be registering for a Zoom session. I will send you out the link. And you're going to go to bit.ly/meetgunk to register. You can use the QR code, or I'll put the link in the description below. If you want to work on your evaluation and your monitoring of these things that you're trying and you're stuck, that's when you come and see me, right? I'm having some math coaching appointments this winter semester, winter 2024, for anyone. You don't have to be my student, in Math 1150, 1540, 1560, 1580, and 1730. I will meet you in person at Orchard Ridge or on Zoom. Please use your OCC email address so I can verify that you're a student when you go to make that appointment for me. When you open up my Calendly, which is calendly.com/jgunk, or you can use the QR code on the screen, you're going to see two kinds of appointments for math coaching. Some is in person and some is on Zoom. Make sure you select the one that you want, and then you can get in there and see the calendar and see the dates that are available. This is going to wrap up my Math Mastery Series, Navigating Success at Oakland Community College. I hope some of these tips have been helpful for you. Again, if you're a current student, I would love to work with you. If you're watching this video and it's after the fact, definitely I hope you got something out of it. I'm going to leave them up. I'll just take out all the links for the registration for the Zoom and for the appointment session. So when that is all over with, I'll just simply remove the links from the list, but I'll keep the list on up. Thanks for watching and paying attention during this series.